call that the
delicious
dried mangoes.
Neela, you want to begin?
Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, everyone. We have an audience from a number of countries because today we are commemorating Mango Day. And mango is the national fruit of India, Pakistan, and the Philippines. And it is also the national tree of Bangladesh. So today we are joined by attendees, hopefully from all these countries. And before we start out, I'd love to wish Eid Mubarak to our guests joining us. We have with us today a number of special panelists. I wouldn't call them experts, I'd call them mango lovers, but they're also artists for the earth. Because we are going to today eulogize the mango. We're not only going to talk about its production and consumption, but we're going to talk about how the mango is so much integral to our customs, our traditions, and even our religion. For example, in India, the mango is the mango blossoms are goddess Saraswati's particular favorite offering. And for example, Lord Buddha would meditate and rest under the mango trees. And even in the Jain religion, Ambika's tree is, the goddess Ambika's tree is also the mango. So the mango is intrinsically part of our customs, our lives and traditions. And today we're going to be joined by Radhika Oberoi, who is a writer and an author. She has written a book called The Stillborn Season, which is about a novel set amongst the massacre of Sikhs in 1984. She's based in Delhi, but she has a postgraduate degree in creative writing and prose fiction from the University of East Anglia in the UK. She has written for a number of dailies, including the Times of India, The Wire, the Hindi Literary Review. And the moment I wanted to know about mango in literature, her name popped up. And so I was very lucky to be able to connect with her. And she has also introduced us to someone else, who is Mr. Parvez Alam, who is based out of London and is joining us from there. He is the founder director of Cine Inc. Limited UK, which is a digital hub of podcasts. And one of his most entertaining and I suppose much loved and much talked about podcast series is called Nama, an Ode to Mangoes. And there are 10 episodes of this. And I've been listening into this for the last couple of days and improving my grasp of the Urdu language, because his guests speak in a pure chaste Urdu. And there are some lovely songs of the mango in the podcast as well. So if you want to be regaled by that, do have a look at his, have a look at www.cineinc.com, which will have a link to his podcast. We're also joined by Voltaire, who's our coordinator in the Philippines, where the mango is called not the king of fruits, but the fruit of the gods. So Voltaire is going to join us and tell us about the special varieties of mangoes in Philippines and the mango festivals there. We also have a video from Pakistan of our coordinator in Pakistan, who has sent us an amazing video of the marketplace there. And I look forward to sharing that with you. And lastly, we will be joined by Pradip Chopra, who is president of the Murshidabad Heritage and Development Society. And Murshidabad is famous for its mangoes, so much so that they have a special way of cutting the mangoes there. And we will also be hopefully be able to share his book with some of you if he allows us. So without much ado, let me quickly play for you the video from Pakistan sent by Mr. Mohammad Naeem. And if I can manage to share the screen, which I'm absolutely useless at, Let me try doing that right now with you. One moment, please. This is Mohammed Naeem from...
There's no sound, Neela. Sound, you need sound.
Just a second. Can you hear?
No.
No? Okay, let me just send it to... we can see the beautiful pictures of the mango. Let me stop this screen sharing, send it to my colleague, and maybe he can play it. Or Mr. Awan, if you are there, would you like to play it? Screen share it from where you are. Mr. Awan has joined us from Pakistan. If you'd like to unmute yourself.
He may not have good bandwidth, so I suggest
Okay.
you it to
I'll just send it to Monadi. In the meantime, Pervez, could I ask you to let us know what is the linguistics of the mango? I believe it also originated in the subcontinent. So tell us about that.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me on this panel. I think you were absolutely right when you said that most of us are not really the experts on mangoes. I'll say that I'm an admirer of mangoes. I'm a lover of mangoes. I have a passion for mangoes. So that would be okay. So this means that I'm not a scholar. I've never studied mango as a subject or in my botany. The fact is that when I decided to do a podcast series on mangoes and called it Nama, and ode to mangoes. And that was the opportunity when I started looking for information on mangoes, about mango orchards, and not just about India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Philippines, Bangladesh, but then about other countries as well. So this is how I gathered a little bit of information from here and there. I think most of us know that, India is home to mangoes. And then I was watching a series a couple of years ago where the expert was saying that such and such fruit is not Indian, such and such vegetable is not Indian. So hundreds of vegetables and fruits have come to India from abroad, from other countries. There is one fruit that you could say with certainty, and that is mango. The mango is Indian, absolutely. So it goes back to about 5,000 years ago when we, read in the scriptures and that mango was talked about fruit, number one. Number two, and then in Tamil, they say manga and monkey in Malayalam. And in Sanskrit, it's called amr. So, the mango, the word, obviously, I think Brits introduced it, the word, because it was manga as far as the Portuguese, were concerned in the 16th century, and it became mango. So an Indian origin, an Indian name for mangoes, you can call it manjari or am or amba in Persian and am in Hindi, Urdu, as we all know. So that would be, I think, the origin of mangoes, very much Indian. And the name also very much, including, the word mango, very much. I don't know what they, call it in, for example, Philippines and in other countries. But as far as English name is concerned, Mangifera indica, that is how they describe it as, kind of a botanical name. So that's it really.
Absolutely. And one of the mangoes also, because since we're talking about how mango has become the most cultivated fruit around the world in the tropics as such. The Alfonso mango has a historical link to another country. Why don't you tell us about that?
Well, I think that is about the Portuguese influence in India, and that goes back to Goa and the occupation of Goa from the Indian point of view. And there was a general, I think his name was Alfonso something, and then
Alfonso de Albuquerque.
that's right,
Wow.
yes. And but the key point here is that yes, the name is given to this particular mango, but he was also responsible for the graft, for the cultivar of this particular mango, because I understand that the Portuguese introduced this new system of introducing mangoes. Just so in Hindi Urdu we call it kalmi. When you graft it, when you try to create a new breed, a new type of mangoes, a new variety of mangoes. And so General Alfonso introduced this particular variety, Alfonso. Now it is supposed to be the best fruit from India, but please do not say it in the northern part of India. People will be offended. I'm one of them because we think that Alfonso is not the king of the in the mango variety. In fact, there are so many varieties in the northern India, and people think they are better than Alfonso. So here is Stars of War.
Neela, if I might just interject on something Parvez ji said, and that is that the India he talks about is really the subcontinent. So just as much as the mango is part of India, it is part of Pakistan and Bangladesh as well. So I think the India you were referring to was the wider, area that was, by Alexander and his people referred to as India. But it is just as much part of Pakistan as it is their national fruit as well, and part of Bangladesh, where it is the national tree over there. So I think Mohammed had raised his hand, Neela. Maybe, since he has bad connectivity, maybe we can bring him in now before we lose.
Mohammed ji, if you would like to get on or switch on your video and your please unmute yourself so that you can join us. I've sent the video across to Monadeep. Monadeep, do let us know when we can play it so that we can actually be transported to a marketplace in Pakistan and see more images of the mango. Mohammed ji, are you able to unmute? Otherwise, let's play the mango. Monadeep, please, could you share? Just to let you know that I'm also putting up questions in the Q&A section about mangoes. So do please answer those. That is Mohammed ji, whom we've been trying to connect with in a local market in Pakistan.
Hello, this is Mohammed Naimawan, Country Coordinator Pakistan with arte.org. 22nd July is the International Mango Day, and it's also the national fruit of Pakistan. So I thought to bring you to a market to show the varieties of mangoes here. Mangoes are cultivated in Punjab and Sindh provinces of Pakistan. Mirpur Khas is called the city of mangoes, as hundreds of varieties of fruits are produced here each year. It organizes an annual mango festival since 1955. Pakistan is the fourth largest producer of mangoes in the world. As of right now, the country is producing about 1.8 million tons of mangoes. Mango production is the second largest fruit production of Pakistan after citrus fruit. Pakistan produces all 400 varieties out of the known 1,000, but around 30 have commercial value. These include Langda, Chonsa, Fajri, Sindri, Anwar Ratul, Neelam, and Dosri. Pakistani mangoes are exported particularly to countries in the Middle East and Europe, and also to Singapore and Hong Kong. Pakistan exporters set mango export target at 150,000 tons for this season. Pakistan earns over $90 million through mango export alone, but it may not be more than $50 million this year due to present coronavirus condition. Summer parties are never complete without this delicious fruit. So enjoy mangoes as we do. Happy Mango Day.
Thank you so much, Mohammed Ji. Even if we couldn't have you join us, your video has certainly set the tone for this webinar. And as I said, it's an Artist for the Earth campaign. So mangoes as a literary device, as a metaphor for the Indian diasporic community. Let's go to Radhika immediately, who will tell us about mango in literature. So Radhika, over to you. I know you're going to read some things for us. I'd love to hear from you on how the mango has become such a personification for, say, the summer months and other things. Over to you, Radhika.
Thank you very much. And yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
So, right, you're absolutely right. You know, the mango is this really great, fragrant, juicy, tart metaphor of the Indian subcontinent, and writers who, you know, the diasporic community can't get enough of it. Indian writers can't get enough of it, and we've sort of elevated it to the status of this, you know, this really lofty character that appears in books, this image, this metaphor. You call it what you will, but it's always there in, you know, in some novel or the other, in some form or the other. So too beloved an image to be discarded for being overused, the mango as a literary device in particularly South Asian literature and poetry represents unspoken thoughts and feelings, unseen body parts of potential lovers, the summer's transience, and as a corollary, the transience of youth and beauty, or even the quality of light on a particular day. So very often it represents home or a longing for home. And in diasporic South Asian literature, you know, it is a marker of perhaps authenticity because it represents home country. And for those reasons, it has been reduced to a trope. So it is a bit of a cliche to include mangoes or to have a reference to mangoes, but you know, but it is always there. And so in this poem called Panipat, which I'll sort of read from, you know, it's from a collection called Mappings. It was Vikram Seth's first, and his poem is called Panipat. He writes, yeah. So this is when he was a student in England, and you know, so these poems are amongst his early works. And this is what he writes: I think of beeches, elms, and stare at the neem tree. My cousin slices a mango and offers it to me. I choose the slice with the seed and learn from its sweet taste. Well known and alien, I must be home at last. So the mango often represents home. It represents a longing for home. It's imbued with nostalgia, and of course is very, very popular amongst the writers who emerged from the Indian subcontinent. Then it also creeps into Salman Rushdie's Midnight's Children. For instance, the narrator Salim Sinai recalls how his maid Mary Pereira, she took the time to prepare for the benefit of their visitors some of the finest and most delicate mango pickles, lime chutneys, and cucumber kasondis in the world. So there is a mention amongst all of this of one other ingredient, which is Mary's guilt. You know, if you read the book, you'll know. So Mary's guilt, which seeps into all her chutneys and kasondis and into the mango pickle that she makes. So the mango in this instance becomes a tantalizing emblem of longing, yearnings, and revelations. So interestingly, Salman Rushdie, you know, he was receiving this Lifetime Achievement Award from the Asian American Writers Workshop at Tribeca in 2013. And he said, and he had this advice, he admonishes young writers and says, I have a rule that I offer to young writers. There must be no tropical fruits in the title, no mangoes, no guavas, none of those. Tropical animals are also problematic, peacock, etc. Avoid that shit. So, I mean, naturally, rules are meant to be broken, and mangoes continue to appear in book titles. And I'll name a few. For instance, there is The House of Blue Mangoes, A Case of Exploding Mangoes. Then it appears as a suffix, for instance, in Anis Salim's The Vix Mango Tree. There's a little town called, a fictive town called Mango Park. And so when it is missed and written about in retrospect, it of course appears in pickles, it appears in created parcels, and even on sari borders as a resplendent motif of the homeland. Then of course, so the diasporic writer particularly sort of returns compulsively through the tricky and fragmented paths of memory to that particular childhood, to that mango which must be immortalized. That's it about diasporic writers. There's more about the mango blossom and how it appears in Sanskrit literature, which I could talk about if there's time.
No, do tell us, because I know that our Indian Cupid arrow is mango flower. So tell us about that.
So Sanskrit literature is glutted with descriptions of mango blossoms, and blossoms that are ecstatically picked at by birds, or they tremble in anticipation of secret trysts. And Kalidasa, of course, has immortalized the mango blossom. And in his Ritush Shamaran, or The Gathering of the Seasons, which is a poem in 6 cantos, there's a mention of the mango blossom in canto 6, which is called Spring. And I'm reading an English translation by Chandra Rajan. So he writes, sprays of full-blown mango blossoms, his sharp arrows, honeybees in rows, the humming bowstring. Warrior spring, set to break the hearts of love's devotees, is now approaching, my love. So spring is a facilitator of love affairs, much like Kamdeva. So spring approaches and an outbreak of passion is expected, and the mango blossoms tremble in anticipation. This is something that is very beautifully described in The Gathering of the Seasons. So that's just one. Then in regional Indian poetry, there's the mango appears as a less exotic image, but it is a more palpable and immediate presence. So it's stripped of nostalgia in regional Indian poetry, and it appears quite naturally in a field or by a well. And the mango metaphors in regional Indian poetry also acquire the specific soil and the specific soil characteristics. It becomes like an earthy metaphor for whatever is going on in that particular town. For instance, in the Malayalam poem, The Master Carpenter, by G. Sankara Kurup, who's really, he's revered as a Mahakavi Ji. And the bark of the mango tree and its rough texture is examined in this particular poem. And I'm reading a translation by K.M. George and A.K. Ramanuja. So it reads, "This is April, the jackfruit tree that shines like slashed gold at the touch of a chisel, and the honey mango tree that always tempts the hand to carve a toy boat from its trunk will be shaking now with blossom, with fruit." So just a far more earthy image of the blossom, of the bark, and of the tree. And regional Indian poetry, of course, is always a very redemptive force, and it sort of glistens with mango verses. The flower, fruit, leaf, bark, all of them appear in elliptical stanzas. So in very terse elliptical stanzas, unlike the diasporic writer who really goes on and who can't get enough of the mango, regional poets are terse, and they're very matter of fact in their use of the mango. And I'd also like to read then from Padma Sachdev's Dogri poem called The Well, which has been translated by Iqbal Masood. And it reads, "To the right of our hill, there's a shining well full of water. Last year, summer covered it with green mango blossom. The green tempted a calf, which fell in and drowned." So on that somber note, I'll hand over to you.
That was so beautiful, and we've got so many comments from our viewers as to how amazing all these writing and literature is. Perhaps we can now go to Parvez, who will talk about mango diplomacy and the mango in history. I know that the mango was a favorite of a number of queens, but let's go back to the Empress of India, Queen Victoria and what happened, her story of the mango. Parvez, over to you.
Yes, thank you. And I would also like to come back on the place of mangoes in Urdu literature, because, poets such as Ghalib, who is considered to be arguably the best known Urdu poet, among that sort of level of poetry in Urdu. And he has written a lot about mangoes. And of course, he wrote actually an ode to mangoes. But then you have asked me about the place of diplomacy in mangoes. This goes back to a long time. Let's say just about 400, 500 years ago, the Rajas, Maharajas, and even Mughals, they used to send mangoes as gifts to their counterparts and to make some people happy. This continued. Now, cut. After 1947, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, later in 1971, obviously. But this tradition continues. Queen Elizabeth, the present queen, is known to have so much fondness for mangoes. And there are various incidents which have been reported by the press. But the latest one, which would be quite interesting for the Pakistanis and Indians as well, is the recent one. About 5 years ago, Queen was traveling from London to Edinburgh at the Waverley station in Edinburgh. The Daily Mail reporter spotted crates of mangoes, boxes of mangoes being loaded from the train, and then going with the saman, the luggage that goes with the Queen. And the paper reported next day with the photographs that Queen Elizabeth is fond of Indian mangoes. And here she was carrying lots of boxes which were sent by India. Now, the mangoes were sent by the Pakistanis. And I understand that Bilawal Bhutto, who is the chairperson of the Pakistan People's Party, he's a prominent opposition leader in Pakistan, he was instrumental in sending those gifts. And the Daily Mail reported the Indian mangoes, and Queen is fond of having Indian mangoes, eating Indian mangoes, and the mangoes were Pakistani, and the Queen was going to have the Pakistani mangoes. So I remember I read it myself that Bilawal Bhutto just couldn't resist, and he issued, I think, a couple of tweets. They are still there on his Twitter line, and criticizing, the Daily Mail, and also criticizing the Indians that they always, hijack this mango as if mango is theirs. But the fact is that Pakistan had sent Sindhuri mangoes, very famous mangoes of Pakistan, for the Queen. So this is one aspect. But then even I can go back, and then, Queen Victoria. My dear friend Sharabdi Basu has written a book on this subject. Later, this was turned into a beautiful film, Victoria and Abdul. And there she mentions a scene where Abdul Karim, her Khansama, the butler, and her secretary asks Queen Victoria, have you ever tasted an Indian mango? And she says, no. And then she says, come on, and then let's get this Indian mango. So mango is sent from crate of mangoes is sent from India, but it never arrives. It goes off. And there is a scene in the film also. I keep asking my friend Sharabni Basu, who is the writer of the book, that did she ever taste an Indian mango? Is there any history of it? And she says, no, she could never taste it. And she had this longing for an Indian mango. So, the diplomacy starts from there. But the latest one, if you have got time, then I've got two more, very interesting incidents. One with then Mrs. Indira Gandhi. It was, I think, 1981. And her counterpart, not counterpart, but he was a military dictator, General Zia-ul-Haq in Pakistan, had sent boxes of mangoes. They are called Anwar Ratol for Mrs. Gandhi. Mrs. Gandhi used to live in one Safdarjung road. That was, her residence. And then the boxes arrived and she ate and she said they are lovely and sent a letter thanking General Zia-ul-Haq. for sending lovely, gorgeous Pakistani mangoes. The next day it was reported, and then two of my friends, I know them personally, so this is true. They cultivate mangoes in India, in northern part of India, and they were very upset because they said the mango that was sent by General Zola was of Indian variety. So the mango was called in Pakistan Anbar Ratol. In India, it is called Ratol. This is a place just about 35 kilometers away from New Delhi. So they, the cultivators, the mango orchard owners of Ratol, they brought a delegation to one Safdarjung Grove, residence of Mrs. Indira Gandhi, to test it. And there was also a cabinet minister accompanying them. And they said, this is not done. General Ziaullah shouldn't have called mangoes, Pakistani mangoes. And then obviously she smiled, and then she also issued a statement. She said, I'm sorry, these mangoes are Indians, but anyway, they are good. And then I'm sending, I think, some ratols now, they, cultivated in India for you.
Oh,
So
gosh.
this is one of those things where sometimes diplomacy goes wrong with the mangoes, but there are some fascinating incidents involving Nikita Khrushchev and Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, India's first prime minister, who was very fond of teaching almost every head of the state how to eat mangoes. So, and there's another incident where he taught Nikita Khrushchev how to try it, sucking it, squeezing it, and trying it. And then the same thing he tried, I think, with Chow Lai as well. There is some, good research available on this subject. So there are lots of episodes. The recent one, I think it was just probably 2 or 3 weeks ago, when the Prime Minister of Bangladesh, Sheikh Hasina Wajid, sent lots of boxes of mangoes, Bangladeshi mangoes, of course, for Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the Chief Minister of Bengal, Mamata Banerjee.
Well, I'll just say that, it's such a pity that we fight over or get into big things about such minor things. Let's just say it is a gift from God. Mangoes are really gifts from God, and whoever can enjoy them. You're fortunate to do so, and do share them with others who may not have them growing in their backyards or in their orchards or in their, lands over there. So let's all share this very, very fantastic Bhagwan ki Deen, as they call it, a gift from God that grows. In my garden, I have some mango trees, and I don't do anything for them. And yet every year on the dot, they produce these most fantastic mangoes. And I look at it and I think that here is a tree that gives me without taking from me. So that is what nature is about, and that is what we need to focus on. And the time has come, as Neela and I are with earthday.org, and so is Mohammed. And we need to focus on the fact that we need to restore our earth. And that is our global theme for this year, for Earth Day, and go beyond also. Make it nature positive, because the UN has just said that just restoring is also not enough. You have to make it positive. So thank you for those anecdotes. It just things that often journalists take, they forget the fact that it is a gift, and they forget the fact that, this is the wealth of nature, and just go into minor things like that. So Neela, were you going to
I'd
ask?
love to, yes, go on to Voltaire now, because in the Philippines, it's known as the fruit of the gods. So Voltaire, why don't you tell us a little more about the mangoes in the Philippines? So Voltaire is sharing a wonderful presentation with us. Wow.
Hello, good evening, good morning, good afternoon to everyone, wherever you are in the world. I am Voltaire Alferez. I used to be the executive director of Earth Day Network Philippines. I'm now currently the trustee in charge while we are awaiting the hiring of a new executive director. I have been involved with Earth Day since 2006. And my focus has always been environment, and quite lately climate change after I left Earth Day. So true to my obedience to earthday.org, I would like to share with you some of the facts, no, of Philippine mango, the fruits of the gods here in the Philippines. Fruit of the gods primarily because of its sweet and fragrant quality, no? And that is really, really tantalizing to many who have orchards of mango trees. No? But of course, the Philippines has become a Christian nation and mostly Catholics. The mango remains to be the king of the fruits. No, it is our number one fruit, our number one source of dessert. So we have four major varieties in the Philippines. One is called the Carabao mango, which is the sweetest and our biggest export. Another one is called the apple mango, probably because it turns red and then it resembles an apple eventually. Then we have the Cachamita mango, which is, we also call this the Indian mango. It's kind of small, and the flesh is firmer than the Carabao mango. It has a distinct taste to it as opposed to the Carabao mango. I actually like it more than the Carabao mango. And then we have the Pico mango, which is kind of longer, more elongated rather than heart-shaped compared to the others. Because of the mango's importance in our agricultural sector, there's actually a mango industry roadmap in the Philippines through the Department of Agriculture, no? And it's a 5-year roadmap to develop the mango further as a source of livelihood, income of small farmers. According to the data, we are 10th in the world in terms of exports, and we export around more than 800 metric tons a year. It is harvested from over 7 million mango trees all over the country. And these trees are being tended to by 2.5 million farmers, no? Smallholder farmers. So there is really a big impact as far as mangoes is concerned in our economy. No? And speaking of restoring the earth, which Karuna mentioned, many of these farmers are really subsistence farmers we are trying to reach out in order to promote sustainability in their farming practices, to avoid pesticides. Although most of this do not really have like big farms, and therefore they still practice the regular or the nature-based processes like smoking the tree rather than, using pesticides, so on and so forth. As I mentioned, in the Philippines, the mango is mostly used for desserts. It is rarely used as part of a dish, unlike other countries. So, for example, we have a lot of mango jams here in the Philippines, no? And it's used for cakes and pies, no? And this is, of course, the mango layered cake. And this is the Philippine dried mangoes, the one that I was mentioning a while ago in our caucus. We export this. And of course, the mango in itself is eaten as it is. This is the one I was telling Karuna. We use it as a salad, sometimes very simply using shrimp paste with it, or you can include other vegetables and condiments. No, this is actually our salad from the other night when Karuna and I talked. So it's very much part of our food as a side dish, and it complements because there's sourness and there's sweetness to it in the rich and sometimes fatty foods that we have in the Philippines. In our culture, there's actually a legend about the mango. No? And according to the legend, a fairy godmother or a diwata or a goddess, no? Actually gave the fruit to the carabao and to his farmer. And because of their sweetness and their support for each other, he made the fruit a sweet fruit in order to remind them of their relationship and how they would have to work to each other in order to have food on the table and money, no? So there's a lot of different stories around the mango in the different islands and cultures within the Philippines. And then finally, there's actually a very big mango festival every May in the island of Guimaras in the province of Iloilo, or in the sub-province Guimaras. It's a very, very big festival, and there's dances, there's pavilions, and of course there's food, and it's all surrounding the mango as a fruit. Guimaras in the Visayas is a known island for the sweetest mangoes in the Philippines. Of course, other islands and other provinces will deny that, but but for me, Guimaras mangoes are the sweetest ones. So that's all from the Philippines as far as mangoes are concerned. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Voltaire. And it's actually in the Guinness Book of World Records that the Carabao mango was one year declared the sweetest fruit. So
Indeed,
you are in the
indeed.
Guinness Book as well for being the sweetest fruit. But Parvez, let's go to you and get some names of various mangoes, because even those names of the mangoes are evocative, and it is sad that so many of these indigenous varieties are actually dying out. And in one of our ebooks, which is called Protect Our Species, there's actually a case study of how one of these dying mango varieties was revived by a farmer who went from house to house, remembering the stories of the mango, remembering how the elder generations would talk about these mangoes, and they somehow managed to revive that particular mango variety. And do look it up in our ebook. The link will be shared in the chat box. It's available online on www.earthday.org under Pathways to Green India, ways to protect our species. That's our ebook. But yes, there are so many mangoes that are going extinct that even I haven't. I mean, Neelam. My name is Neela, but I can't remember actually having a Neelam. Luckily, we have a horticultural garden here in Calcutta, and every year they do organize a mango festival where you can go and try these various mangoes from all around India. I've put up some quiz questions in the chat box and in the Q&A, such as which is the state with the largest production of mangoes, and other questions. So do try to answer those as well. Over to you, Parvez, to tell us some interesting names of mango varieties.
Oh yeah, sure, absolutely. You know, just my information comes from the producer's perspective. As you mentioned in the beginning, but then I would like to recap it here that I'm not an expert on mangoes, but then because I produced a 10-part series on mangoes in Urdu, Hindi, it is called Amnama. And this is how I came to know so much about mangoes. The place of mangoes, you know, in Indian poetry, in various languages, and then also the rivalries. Karuna says something that mango is the uniting, you know, factor. This is true. But, you know, there has to be a rivalry, even in love. So this mango evokes so much passion and so much, you know, sometimes anger as well. What my friend, you know, from Philippines, towards the end, he just, you know, couldn't be non-partisan. He just said that in his opinion, this mango is the best. And this, I think, goes for everyone, all of us in India, that we come from a certain region. We think we have got the best mangoes. And I keep hearing about Philippines. I was reading a story when I think for some reasons mango was not declared this. The Guinness Book of Records did not declare the sweetest mango in the Philippines. And they were hugely upset. There was so much anger, in the nation that, hey, how could they do this? Anyway, so coming back to, yes, mango is the uniting factor, but mango is also about passions. It evokes so much passion. And this is what Ghalib, one of the greatest Urdu poets, actually said. And then he's known to, talk about mangoes so much. He wrote an ode to mangoes called Dar Sifate Amba. Amba, as I said, that is also in Hindi and Sanskrit, but then is also in Persian, means where he says that मुझसे पूछो तुम्हें खबर क्या है, आम के आगे नेशकर क्या है, आम के आगे नेशगर क्या है. So this means that ask me, what do you want to know about the mangoes? The fact is that a mango is far sweeter than sugarcane. And then he goes on and on about, that mango is even better than the beloved. He goes to that extent. So this is how the names of the mangoes and the mentioning of the mangoes, these two things evoke so many responses. Quickly about the names of the mangoes, my God, there are hundreds and hundreds of mango varieties. And this is what I discovered. There was a small booklet produced by a mango orchard owner in the northern part of India, Shahjahanpur, and then I had to just going through it. And there were hundreds of varieties that were cultivated in that part of India, not all over India. So anyway, so some of the popular names in India are Alfonso, obviously, Ratol. In the northern part, Ratol is a part of Baghpat district in UP. It is called Ratol in 1947. Someone called Mr. Anwar, he took this plant to Pakistan and then planted it, and then mango orchards and some of those things flourished. It is called Anwar Ratol. But then for the northern part of India, this is considered to be the best mango, in India. I mean, there's a claim, and I'm saying it, that you should go back and check it. In the 1930s, when I was researching for my podcast series, this Ratol mango was brought to London by a man called Ahmad Saeed Khan Chatari. And this was adjudged the best mango, the Ratol. This was in the 1930s. So Alfonso, Ratol, Daseri, Chausa, Langda, Saroli, Sindri, Totapuri, Badami, Kishanbhog, Malda, Zafrani, Husnara. What a name. Husnara, Malda, Zafrani, Gulab Khas, Fajri, Safeda, Honey, Kesar, Samar Bahish, Khatta Meetha. My dear friend from Philippines, you said kacha meetha something. I think probably it was khatta meetha. I think maybe that could be the origin. And Neelam, Rasal, and in Australia, of course, we know that Kensington Pride is a very famous mango in Australia. Every Australian is supposed to know about it. In America, Tommy Atkins and Hayden and Kent. This is what we discovered during our research. In Japan, Taiyo no Tomago, probably that's the name. But then in English, they say egg of the sun, which is supposed to be the most expensive mango in the world. I was reading somewhere that, it was auctioned recently, some months ago, and then $4,000 for just 2 mangoes. Each mango cost
Japanese mango.
Japanese mango. This is Taiyo no Tomaga egg, the name of the egg of the sun. So that's the name. So anyway, so these are some of the names, but then I apologize to lots of those people, and including Karuna, because I haven't mentioned anything from Bengal, and I haven't mentioned lots of names from the southern part of India. So my apologies. This is not a war, but then passion to talk about my own mangoes.
Wait till you hear Mr. Chopra.
Yes, we have an expert on the Murshidabad mango with us. Mr. Pradip Chopra is probably in his school, which is ILEAD, one of the premier academic institutions of Bengal, which is again in one of our ebooks. on how to green public spaces. His school has got amazing ways of conserving energy, of upcycling materials and things like that. But Pradip ji, you are also managing director and chairman of the PS group. You are also with CREDI, which is the Real Estate and Architectural Association, and you also mentor young startups and groups like that. But today we want you here as the president of the Murshidabad Heritage Development Society, and you have also written a book on what to do with mangoes of Murshidabad. So do tell us what are the specialities of that region, and you even have a special knife, I believe, to cut the mango. So over to you, Pradip ji, to tell us more.
Thank you so much. You see, Murshidabad mangoes always fascinated me particularly because I had an aunt, Masi, married to a Murshidabad family. And from childhood, I used to go to my Masi's house, particularly during the mango season, and taste all that fantastic varieties of mango. You know, they have also very fascinating name. Just now I heard some fascinating names. You know, Rani, Pavani, Pimbli, Kala Pahad, Ananas, and one of the best variety of mango from Murshidabad was called Kohitur. Now, Kohitur was so delicate. Now, very few trees of Kohitur are left. We are trying that, their numbers can be increased. So we are trying very hard to see that their number increases. Kohitur is so delicate that, first of all, you can only eat it when it is just right time to eat. That is just the right time. It's just right. But if you delay, the fruit gets changes its taste because it's very delicate. You can't eat it before, and you have to use cotton to put. Otherwise, the warmth of your hand can make it melt. It's so delicate. And if you cut and put it in your mouth, it will dissolve. You really don't have to use your tongue or your your teeth or anything like that. It will dissolve like an ice cream. So it's one of the most delicate and one of the most expensive also from that area. Although not many people know about Kohitur, so there is no such craze or something like that. But it's a fantastic variety. And you see, the whole idea was that Akbar, after he established his capital in Delhi and India, the Mughals have established their, empire in India. He was very fascinated by mango because there was nothing like mango in their own, hometown from where they had come. So he encouraged mango cultivation, and all the people who were under his empire were encouraged to have mango orchard and experiment with cross-pollination, cross-breeding, and develop new variety. Now, this Murshidabad fortunately had say about 20 families who migrated from Rajasthan to Murshidabad. Murshidabad was one of the most prosperous in India, contributing almost 5% GDP of the world and almost 20% GDP of India. They had amassed a lot of wealth. They had so much of wealth. They had so much of style, and they had also access to different resources, experts, and they were access to the Mughal court, they had access to Nawab's court, and they had a lot of time because, that time the life was quite slow and all. So they developed these varieties of mango, and they are, unless you eat it, I can't explain, how good or how fascinating these varieties of mango are. I have actually tried mangoes even in foreign countries and wherever it's grown. And also we had mango orchard also our own in North Bihar and Malda and but there's none of these varieties can compete with the varieties of Murshidabad. And since it is very small quantity, not many people can eat because this quantity is very limited, and it's not enough. We who know where to get and who know about Murshidabad mango, even we sometimes don't get. At least Kohitur we don't get, some other varieties also get exhausted very fast. So since it is not tasted by so many people, people don't know about it. But you have to taste it. We do from Murshidabad Heritage Development Society every year. We do mango festival where we get this Murshidabad mangoes and as you rightly said, see from my childhood, I had seen them cutting this mango in such a neat style, and they had this special churi, very fine knife with which they used to cut the mango. And once you have got used to eating the mango cut by a Sherwali woman, you will never touch another mango cutting by anybody else because when others don't know how to cut, there'll be every piece is same in size. It's absolutely clean. It's absolutely without any. When they cut, you will find like it's a perfect cut. There's no fiber looking, coming out or anything like that. There's no juice, dripping from there. It's like a chocolate. So when you eat, it's so perfectly done. So once you get used to that kind of perfectly cut mangoes, you would not like to, have the mango cut by anybody else who doesn't know how to cut these mangoes in that with that finesse. So that's when you come, to this festival, you can see actually these ladies sitting there and cutting the mangoes. That itself is an experience. And then, of course, these varieties are fantastic. And then they have a style of eating. That means you can't go from one mango variety to another mango. You have to actually go through a neutral taste so that your taste doesn't get affected by the earlier mango tasted. And then you have to actually follow a certain, protocol to taste. Like when you're doing the tea tasting, you have to follow a certain protocol. Here also, when you are tasting these mangoes, you have to actually follow that protocol because otherwise you will not be able to appreciate that taste to the fullest. Unfortunately, most of these mango orchard, my Masi's family, Dugars, had a huge mango orchard, but many years back they sold it off. And I don't know what is the fate of that. So many mango varieties have gone extinct. Originally, when I was doing research on Murshidabad mangoes, they had more than 300 varieties of mangoes at some point in time. Today, maybe you can get 40, 50 varieties. The rest of the varieties are all not available because those trees don't exist anymore. That's very unfortunate part of us that we don't value our heritage and we don't really are in that preservation and conservation mode. Even the Sherwali food was getting extinct, and I had to really work for 2 years to get those recipes and publish them in the form of book. Also, I did this. This is the mango book on Sherwali mangoes, and there's another book, Murshidabad mango, which two books we have published. So if you are interested, you can actually get them from the Murshidabad Heritage Development Society, and it covers mostly the whole the mango trail, which started because of the Akbar, and then how during over the last 400-500 years these people did a lot of experimentations and innovations and developed their own varieties. And there's a special varieties. There are uh, again they have so much protocol that certain uh, recipes of Sherwali cuisine uses a particular variety of mango, and then you can only eat that particular variety of mango with some food, and there's also a protocol. So they have very lot of style and finesse in their food habits and serving. So it's worth trying once. I always tell people that there are a lot of things in our country. You must experience that once before you die. So it can be listed in one of the things which you have these books like 5,000 things to do before you die. I think tasting Murshidabad mangoes with all its glory and all its protocol and all its style should be one of those bucket list that you should do it before it's too late. So that's all I wanted to share. If any questions is there, I can just take a few questions. from the audience if they are interested to know more about.
Thank you so much, Pradip ji. I don't know, but my mouth is watering. I'm sure everyone else is also dying to bite into a juicy, succulent mango. I'd just like to go across to any of our speakers if they have any special mango memories. I know mangoes are something that I remember my grandmother's special mango pickles, her special mango desserts. Now, of course, there's mangoes in our shandesh, which is the typical sweet of Bengal. It is there in our mishti doi. So during the mango season, we try to use the mango as much as possible. And when it is not in season, let us all try to basically maybe turn it into what we call the shakto or papad, so that it can be eaten even, dried and eaten even later. So perhaps Radhika, would you have any mango stories to end today's discussion with? I'll go to each speaker once.
Well, yes. I mean, I do remember as a child eating a mango with this absolute pagan delight. There's no, I mean, I've just heard about how beautifully, the mango, the Murshidabad mango is cut. But I remember sort of tearing through my mango and really sort of biting into its flesh and really experiencing that the juice dribbling down my chin. And it's really not a pretty sight because lots of childhood photographs of that. And Ruskin Bond, I mean, since I've sort of discussed how mangoes appear in literature, Ruskin Bond also, I mean, how can any conversation on summer and mangoes not have Ruskin Bond? So he describes, a summer day and he includes the mango in it. So I just thought I'd read a little bit from it. He says, Ruskin Bond, without whom one would never have known the unsullied tints of schoolboy descriptions, writes in a piece, it's called The Vagabond in Delhi. For who can forget that summer brings the jasmine, whose sweet scent drifts past us on the evening breeze, along with the stronger odors and scents of mango blossom, Rat Ki Rani, and cow dung smoke. So it's always, so mango is always associated with this very pastoral, childlike innocence and an idyllic summer day. I thought I'd end with that.
Thank you so much. Over to you, Voltaire. I don't know whether you knew about this way that we have of peeling a corner of a mango and squeezing it and then sucking it. These are ways that we eat mangoes. The way you all diagonally cut the mango, turn it a little upside down so that you can eat the diced cubes of mango. I only learned when I went abroad for higher studies. In India, we tend to make a mess of our mangoes when we're eating it.
Yeah, those are just done by restaurants, although many households already do that, the diagonal. But I also remember, like what Radhika was saying, I was young, I was a little boy, my grandmother would buy these mangoes, these Carabao mangoes, and she would just peel off the top part, and she will peel off like a spiral thing, and as it's being peeled off, she lets me suck on it or bite to it, and then she peels it again, and then it's always eaten with this what do you call that, rice pudding, just like in Thailand.
That we call it, yes.
Okay, just like in Thailand, yeah. My grandmother would always buy it with the mango every afternoon. I say come home from school, and that would be my snack every afternoon. And now my son is actually a big fan of the mango fruit, and every time it's in season, he's always like, please buy me a mango, please buy me a mango, or even a mango juice.
Absolutely. Over to you, Parvez.
Okay, just a quick one. Ghalib said about mangoes that aam meethe ho or khoob ho. The qualities, there should be just two qualities, in mangoes. A, that they should be sweet and they should be in plenty. This is just one part. There's another Urdu poet who actually wrote an ode to mangoes. This is how I borrowed the name Amnama for my podcast series. His name was Akbar Allahabadi. And again, he was during Ghalib's time, 1857 onwards. And he just very quickly, just 3 or 4 lines, नामा न कोई यार का पैगाम भेजिए, इस फसल में जो भेजिए बस आम भेजिए. ऐसा जरूर हो कि उन्हें रख के खा सकूं, पुख्ता अगरचे 20 तो 10 खाम भेजिए. So this is, he suggests this, that send, lots of mangoes, some raw and some fully, ripened. And this is what he says in this Urdu poet. Finally, just 30 seconds. You were talking about how to eat mangoes. During the last 2 years, the most political question in India is, how do you eat your mangoes? आप काट के खाते हैं गुठली के साथ? This is this is a very political, volatile question, and then you could see people immediately laughing and just associating this thing something with one of the top actors in India who was interviewing once upon a time the Prime Minister of India, and he ended up asking this question: how do you eat your mangoes? Do you cut them or squeeze them or suck them? Anyway, thank you very much.
Over to you, Karuna. But before that, I just see in the chat box that someone has shared a very interesting story, since we were talking about Japanese mango as, what did you say, the egg of the sun.
Yes.
She says that the mango in one of the oldest myths from Hindu folklore, the mango is said to be the daughter of the sun god Surya. One day, upon falling on the ground from a mango tree, the mango turned into the beautiful princess, Surya Bai. Charmed by her beauty and grace, a king falls in love with her and vows to marry her. On seeing the newly wedded couple, the king's first wife curses and turns the princess into ashes. It is said that out of the ashes rose another magnificent mango tree. And when one of the fruits fall on the ground, the princesses are reincarnated. The king also recognizes the princess as his bride from the previous birth, and the couple reunite. So India is full of stories, whether it be in our folklore, our mythology, and even in our religion, where Ganesh is holding a ripe mango, that we have stories of the mango. Perhaps we can end with you, Karuna, if you have a story to wind up and thank all our panelists.
Well, Neela, I'm going to tell them about the fact that during mango season, you and other colleagues used to sit at my dining table, lay out, newspapers over there, and they would, take the juice of 30, 40 mangoes, and it was a competition between them, that how many mangoes could they have, and then the whole place just had the fragrance of mangoes. So, mangoes, one can go on and on and on, but coming back to the purpose of us, putting together this special focus on mangoes, it is to help us realize, like as Mr. Chopra says, a lot of varieties have died out. How do we revive these? How do we get back to nature? How do we restore things? There has to be a way of doing so. So that is the main purpose of this focus, that, we talk about this nectar of the gods, or the gift of the gods, or the egg of the sun, or whatever you want to call it. And, remember that we should not lose, but protect, conserve our nature. Development will take place, but then let us do it side by side with making sure that our orchards are not cut down, that trees continue to blossom. And it's just not mangoes for us. Mangoes, are for the birds also, and other creatures who feed on them, or even the bats, the mango bats that you have. So, as they say, nature doesn't do it for themselves. The mango tree does not produce fruit to consume itself. It does it for us. So let us give back to nature to make sure that we restore it, that we don't go around, destroying it, but instead we are intelligent enough to realize that we have to protect and conserve it. Otherwise, it is bad for us. Forget about anybody else. Let's be selfish and say it's bad for us, because we have only one planet. have only one home. Let's look after it. But thank you from earthday.org to all of you wonderful panelists. It's been a riveting discussion to hear, and it has, evoked thoughts in my mind about going back to all the beautiful books you've spoken about, Radhika, the authors, and Mr. Alam. I will listen to your podcasts and Voltaire. Thank you so much. I'm going to read more about your festival, and maybe one day you and I will be there, that island. And Pradip ji, of course, we have been beneficiaries of your Murshidabad festival and seen the beautiful things. But we wish you all the best in your endeavors to revive everything in Murshidabad, and especially mangoes. So Muhammad Awan is also here. Thank you, Muhammad, for joining us and telling us about the beautiful mangoes that you have in Pakistan, especially from the Sindh province, you told us. And it really is a unifying thing more than something to say that this is mine and that is theirs. This is for all of humanity. Let's not forget, all of us are earthlings first before we are Indians or Pakistanis or Filipinos or British or anything else. And anything that happens anywhere is going to affect everybody because we are networked. So let's work together. Let's join hands to restore our earth. And thank you very much, Neela, for putting this together. It's been so enjoyable. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, all of you. And I'd just like to say that for the rest of the month and maybe for the next 30 days, we've got a campaign on Share Your Love for Mangoes. It's not just a fruit, it's a sentiment. So we've got a frame up on our Facebook and Instagram. So take a picture of yourself eating a mango with a mango tree or whatever, post it and tag us, Earth Day Network India, and we will feature the best. And we hope you enjoyed this webinar. We will possibly put it up on our YouTube channel. We had a few questions, and I think a lot of you have got the correct answers to that as well. So do keep engaging with us on our social media handles, and we look forward to hosting you again. We do another program, which is Farmers for Earth, and we've had the president of the All India Mango Growers Association on that, and that too will be up on our playlists on YouTube. And so we hope you will continue interacting with us. Tomorrow we have an Insta Live at 3 p.m. on our Earth Day Network Instagram page with our earthday.org stars, Pramita Sharma and Mukhtar Mazin, and they will be talking about a school in Assam where plastic is the currency used, plastic waste is the currency for paying school fees. So do join us for that and our other webinars this month. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you. Thank you, Karuna. Thank you, Neela.
Bye-bye. See you soon. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Radhika. Thank you.